Welcome back to another episode of Keoni Chats. So my guest today is Ryan Brown. So at my last job, I was working in the print industry, and that's actually how I met Ryan. He was a client of the company, and I believe he's still a client to this day. So he's still working with them, and what was crazy about my first time meeting him was just that it just, I have those moments where I see someone I work with or someone that's associated with my work or just school or whatnot, and I'm just like, I can see myself hanging out with this guy. I can see myself getting a beer with this guy or just catching a game or watching a movie or something like that. That's how I felt with Ryan. It was crazy because anytime he come in, I like to, as someone that's been a receptionist or office admin for 2 years now, or just 2 stints, I always want to make sure that anyone coming through that door felt like they were walking into a party, just a bunch of cheering, a bunch of hands in the air. So I did that. I do that with everyone, but with Ryan, it just, I hands up, stood up, and got off from around the desk, talked to him face to face when we could have done that. So it was so great to see him, and it was so great this conversation. I believe at the end of it all, this will be one of my longer conversations, one of my longer episodes, and that's weird. It didn't feel that long. Granted, while he was talking, I was kind of keeping an eye on the clock, and I wasn't worried about, we're reaching an hour and a half. Oh, we're reaching almost an hour and 40. I was just like, I'm having fun, man. I don't know how to cut this off. So definitely keep a lookout for him to be a repeat guest. So to keep in the loop as far as when episodes become released and all other creative content belonging to KC Media and myself, follow us on social media. And by us, follow myself. So that is KC Media 13 on both Instagram and Twitter, and then Conlu K Media on Facebook. If you'd like to become a guest, email me at kcmedia13@yahoo.com and tell me your story, and then we'll get you on the docket, get you scheduled. So last week, I put in my early intro that Austin Candenosa's episode got over 120 views, and to this point now, it's over 200. So to those of you that checked out Austin's episode, thank you so much. And if you enjoyed the interview, I urge you, check out some of the other episodes that I have had. So this will be episode 41. You got 40 other episodes that have great stories for people that don't have an opportunity, or maybe this will be their second or third opportunity to be on a podcast to tell their story, because you never know when one of those stories can relate to you. And at least for me, that's my mission, is just to try to get people's stories out there, and to not just find a story that a fan can relate to, B, find a way that I can help myself be okay with some of these mental hurdles I have to make every day, whether it's anxiety, whether it's overthinking, or whether it is just, not thinking at all. So check out any of my other episodes. The most recent ones, Ashmere, you have Austin Candenosa, you have Cale Newton, and you have Josh Mackler. So check out any of those last 4 out, and then you got a few more a little bit down the pipeline that are great stories to be told. And if you do check out Josh Mackler's or Austin Candenosa's or Cale Newton's, it's a little bit of a different order, but if you check those last three I just mentioned, I did try 3 different Black-owned restaurants within the Portland area using the website iloveblackfood.com. Check out those 3 restaurants. So it's Plant-Based Poppy, Viking Soul Food, and a Spice of Africa. So check those 3 out. Amazing food. My palate, my taste buds, they're not going to be the same, because I was able to try something different, got to push myself outside that comfortability bubble, and really test out my limits. And the limit was not tested. I want some more. So however you are listening to this episode, in whichever platform you prefer, or if you are watching this episode on YouTube, I hope you enjoy my chat with Ryan Brown. I tend to create bromances, and the bromance I have with my guest today, it's on a different level. Mr. Ryan Brown, how are you doing, man? It's been a lifetime.
Wow, that is what an introduction. Nobody's ever introduced me that lovingly, so thank you. The bromance is real. I feel it too, Keoni, and I am very happy to be here talking with you.
Well, how would your parents introduce you then?
Oh, good. You mean between like fuck up and like we're really proud of him? God, that is a really good question, man. You're really getting deep at the get-go. How would they introduce me? They would introduce me as probably like, this is Ryan, he's our son, he does graphics, something like that.
why
He
why'd
owns
you
a house.
why'd you say fuck up? Is there did they have like a different idea for you and pathwise?
I think they think I'm fine. I don't know. Who knows? Sometimes you think you can never live up to your parents' expectations. I think they're proud of me. I think I just say that a little self-effacing way. But no, they're loving parents, and I think I've done okay. I'm not living in their home with them right now, so I think that's success.
That's true. That's true. I mean, you and I are the same age. I think you're younger, right? You're like 21, 22.
Yeah, I just turned 21. You can tell by the gray in my beard that I'm just new to to what it's like to be an adult. In a few years, I'll be able to rent a car. So, yeah, I'm really just starting adulting, and I'm loving it.
But yeah, it's one of those things where like the negatives or the mistakes you make, they stand out the most over like the positivities or the great
Sure.
moments you had. Because like I can say that
Mm-hmm.
for myself too. Like, oh, I fucked up because of this last year or so, or maybe two
Mm-hmm.
years of all the like mistakes and relationships I've kind of bobbed and weaved through. But
Mm.
all in all, like if I hear someone say actually you're not, I have such a hard time accepting that.
It's true. It is hard to like accept compliments, and I think being in like a creative field too, you're constantly judging like the work you're doing, and is it good enough? Is it creative enough? Is it interesting? And is it gonna? And then at the end of the day, is it gonna work for 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 your client, whoever you're designing it for? But yeah, that is like a daily process of like doubting yourself. Uh, but you get used to it, so sometimes you enjoy the doubt and you live with it, and you find a way to cope.
Does it kind of motivate you too to like continue pursuing, or have you had a
Yeah.
time where you're like, I should have just been a I don't know professional athlete instead of a graphic designer?
I have the body and yeah, I'm kind of built to be a professional athlete. I haven't figured out which sport that is yet, but there's got to be some sport that my my like average body is set for. Like I've thought about like should I have gone into something else, and I think I was really interested in science and growing up, biology, that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, maybe I could have been like a scientist. Like I'm interested in learning things and how things work, but I think what I do now is probably more interesting to me because I get to use like art, design, and craft to learn about things in a scientific way. And I don't think I have the patience to be a researcher, or I don't think I'm smart enough to be a scientist. So I feel like design fits me. I'm like just smart enough to to be a decent designer.
That's how I felt in college when I was studying, going through the journalism communications
Mm,
classes. I was like, they're all project bases. They're not like reports. They're not like,
mm.
homework or tests like that. I was like, I feel like, or actually, anytime I heard someone say like, oh, I'm a biology major. Oh, I'm a mathematics major. I'm just like, how big is your brain? Let me just
Right.
tell me when to stop, because
Yeah.
I could
But
not
use
do that.
small words. Don't use big words. Use small
Yeah.
words to describe. I didn't know
Or
you were like a journalism major, so like doing podcasts and like interviewing people and getting the scoop. That's more than just like an interest of the last year. This is like a passion, a lifelong passion.
So I've originally I was thinking, I want to get back into the journalism game, but
Mm,
leaving college, I didn't have a whole lot of experience on my reel to show to news broadcast stations, for example. So I was like, I'll get back to writing because that's what I started
mm,
with. And then I realized the new form of like storytelling is podcasting. So
mm-hmm.
I thought I started diving into that, and I to this day I don't think I can watch my first episode because I'm just like, oh God, what am I doing? But some people have watched it and they're like, you actually didn't do that bad. I was like, I beg to differ.
Wait a second. So you're telling me that you haven't listened to one of your own like tapings?
Well, I've like obviously I watch it as I'm editing it, and then I've
Okay,
actually like
gotcha.
started. I listened to maybe a couple here or there, like most recently, just to see how
Mm-hmm.
it sounds through the audio, and I was like, oh, it does. It's different because like I'm not used to like,
Mm-hmm.
hearing my voice but not seeing my face.
Mm-hmm.
But it's yeah, I've definitely grown to be okay hearing my own voice, seeing
Mm-hmm.
myself. That camera shyness is gone.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think your listeners will really appreciate this behind the curtain look. We're really exploring your process, and I know that's what your listeners have been really clamoring for. So I'm glad to be a part of this.
Yeah, all the listeners that include like probably a good 25% of my family and friends. So
Hey,
anyone
you
else,
got to start small, right?
yeah, you gotta start somewhere. And it's like, oh, I'm okay with that percentage being my family and friends. It's like, and
Yeah.
then everyone else has kind of been through social media. And for you, how, because I hear all these like negative connotations about social media, which is all fine and dandy.
Mm,
It would make sense. What are your overall thoughts about social media, since with your profession you kind of have to
mm.
use it to get it out there?
That's very interesting. Yeah, I think using social media as a tool for any kind of artist, designer, illustrator, photographer, whatever, is like a great tool that you can kind of craft, how the world sees you. You can give long form content, short form. So yeah, it's a great tool, and I'm not very good at using it. I like that's to me where I feel like, oh, I'm this old soul, and like it's really hard for me to promote myself, to not overthink something, to I end up just overthinking, like, can I show this? Can I not show this? Is this good enough? Is this not good enough? Like, do I want to put more context? Should I be posting stuff for my business or my personal stuff or like this collective I work with? So usually I end up overthinking it. I'm like, it's better to not even just put myself out there. Um, so like I know logically, like it's something I should be doing better at and using it, but I it's a struggle for me. It's like not natural, and I am really jealous for those who it is so natural.
Yeah. So you and I met at my last job, which was at a
Mm,
print industry, and you are in the creative marketing world.
hmm.
I remember I posted a few of your projects, and just remembering how
How
like,
dare you, sir?
hey, you know what?
No,
I
I'm
got the
kidding.
approval. I got the approval. I just started posting some of them on the company's Instagram
Mm,
account, for example,
hmm.
and they were just absolutely fantastic work. It's just
Mm,
the attention to detail, and also like how it looks in the finished product just overall. Because I've seen like the printouts, because you proof check it.
mm.
I hang out. I tend to forget about the phone that I'm supposed to pick up. Um, it's all good. It's all
Yeah, I mean that was so fun when you were working there because I feel like I'd forget what I was even there to do. We would just be riffing, kind of like we're doing now. But yeah, it's one of the things that I really missed over this last year and a half is just like not being able to do as much print work.
Mm.
Clients, are all like meeting virtually. People budgets are shrinking, so they're not spending as much on any kind of fancy pieces. I think when you were there, one of the things I was working on was some CBD oil packaging, and we were doing some really cool things with the soft touch and foils and different printing techniques. I remember another project where we were using like metallic inks on some of the digital printers they had. So we were kind of like experimenting and doing some fun projects. And it's just now, it's harder, like it's just, uh, you really have to try and sell the idea of doing print, and it has to be like a very strategic decision that usually has a lot of hurdles. So I do miss that. Luckily, got to finish a print project recently that's really cool. In the same way, got to experiment with materials and different kinds of inks and stuff when I was working on some of the work with the place you worked at. I've gotten to do that recently, so it's nice to come back to that, especially when everything is virtual. To have something tactile that you can touch and picks up the light is just so nice.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, did you have any doubts that you'll still have this job, or are you like, what
Hmm.
percentage would you say your comfortability was thinking that you can continue on with this even through this hardship?
Yeah. So, I own my own design business practice called Crayon, and then I also work with a small women-owned business that works in consulting and strategy and equity called Future Work Design. And that's a collective of about 6 people. And so luckily, I think I had some projects for my own kind of traditional design practice, and then some projects with Future Work Design. So like I was getting fed from a couple different places, which made it a little easier. And then there was, some of the PPP stimulus kind of helped once they like opened that up to individuals and freelancers. That really helped too. So it's definitely scary being a freelancer and owning your own business and thinking about, your own health insurance. And I definitely had to kind of downscale my expectations too. A year ago, I had an intern for the summer, and I've been thinking about, oh, I really wanted to bring in another designer into my work. It inspires me and allows me to kind of expand the scope of projects, and that's just been harder too. So it's more lonely, but I think having like a group of people, even if you're like my advice, like I think having this collective, this group that I work with, really helps me feel connected to other professionals and other like levels of work. I think to be a freelancer and to feel like you don't have anyone you can go to talk about real world projects is really challenging. It can feel really isolating and kind of like scary that like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to come out of this, or I got to like leave that and get a real job again, which who wants to do that?
Yeah, it's just the thought of like you have to learn about it all on your own, and then if
Mm.
you start going down this path of like, okay, I watched this one YouTube video, I guess this is the proper way to do it, and then let's say someone self comes around and be like, oh, so you might want to switch it up a little bit, so you do this, and next thing you know, that person's whole world is just like either A, shattered, or A, rebuilt to something beautiful.
Yeah, totally. And like there's that moment when a lot of this happened too. Is like, where do you invest your time? Do you invest your time in trying to get new work? Do you invest like if things are getting slower? Do you try and build up your social media or your like online presence or your portfolio? Or do you look for a regular job, like like a job with health benefits? And I know a lot of designer friends have been like weighing that, like, is it time to start thinking about getting a real job, or like where should I invest my time? So
Mhm.
that also like is uh, I'm sure a lot of people have had like career changes or like I don't know, have also maybe been crushed under that pressure of like not being able to decide where they should invest their time, like what's the real like path forward for them when there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah. So you own a company. Is it called Crayon?
Yeah,
Crayons?
so Keoni, I have we not talked about this because I feel like you would really like this.
Because like
uh
I did research into you and I saw crayons on your LinkedIn page and I was like, did he work for like the crayon company, like the ones kids use to?
like Crayola, is that what you're
Yeah,
asking me?
that's what I was like
No.
originally. I was like, I thought it was Crayola. So Crayon. So being a
Yeah, let me
business
clarify
owner
here.
through COVID, how, before you clarify, how was that
Mm.
conversation with your employees to tell them like this is how it's going to be, blah blah blah. We're gonna have to cut back because that's got to be a difficult conversation to have.
My employees, no, it's just me.
Oh.
There's no employees. It's it's my business. I do sometimes have contractors and I've had
Mm,
interns,
okay.
but my design practice is just me. The collective I work with is a group of people.
Okay.
Um, Luckily, I didn't have to have any of those conversations. I didn't have to have to lay anybody off.
Ooh.
Didn't have to cut any benefits. Or ask somebody to work part time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just me,
Okay.
for better or worse. Uh, but like I hope once COVID ends, like I can grow this a little more, and
Yeah.
I just the idea, like, I don't like to think about bringing somebody on until you really start to have enough overflow work that you can really feed somebody. Because I'm not that interested in bringing somebody on for like 5 or 10 hours a week. I want like a real like partner.
Mhm.
But let me tell you about crayon
Yes,
because
yes, please.
it's not color crayons, but my practice involves design and illustration, and I also every once in a while teach workshops on visual thinking and how you can use pictures and drawings to help make sense of things and to help prototype things. So crayon, crayon is a tool to do all that, right? And then my name is Ryan, and if you start moving the letters around and the word crayon, you get Ryan and Co, right? So you get the
Oh,
Ryan and the CO. So it's basically like, yes, it's me and hopefully, others.
yeah.
Like I said, right now, it's usually in the form of bringing in people for like very specific projects or components. But yeah, Ryan and Company. So it's a little confusing. It's maybe slightly clever, and you also love this too. I've actually made as little tchotchke giveaways. I have pencils that have the word crayon printed on them. So I like to confuse even more so in my brand. I like to have pencils with the word crayon on them. Yeah,
you,
that's
you're
who you're dealing with. Sorry.
you're a tricky SOB.
And that's how my parents would describe me, I think. Now that you say that, that's ringing a bell.
Oh, it all comes full circle, my friend.
Full
It's always full
circle.
circle. So with crayon, so the Rybrow experience, was that also a part of your crayon kind of, I guess, webinar or this kind of teachings that you offered people, or is that something different?
Yeah, I think it's best practice to have like 5 different email accounts and like 3 different websites that have your name and your work in it. Like, I think that's good marketing and branding. Like, just to have yourself spread over different things so people really don't know who you are, where you are, how to get a hold of you. And so that's been my approach. I think I've been pretty good at it. Rybrow, that was never like, it was never like my own. There was never like a business name right there. I mean, I was freelancing under my own name for a while, but Rybrow was just the email I could get with Gmail that wasn't taken because Ryan Brown is like one of the most common names, I think, in this, at least in this country. Anytime I go to a bank or something and I tell them my name, they have to scroll through about 100 different Ryan Browns,
Yeah.
within the 5 mile radius. So, yeah, to long-winded answer your question, yeah, the Rybrow experience is the Ryan Brown, the crayon. It's all the same.
All the same. Well, I mean, I think you should at least go to the courthouse, change your name so it's Ryan Brown 1. Just put a 1 after Brown, and no one's gonna have that.
I usually try the number 3. I've always liked the number 3. So there's a lot of accounts with Ryan Brown, R Brown 3.
Mhm.
Um, for all of those identity theft listeners out there, that's my accounts are usually tied to that. So
Take some
there's
notes,
your
guys.
tip.
Take some notes, guys.
Here, let me like run through some of my passwords. The first one,
Social security number is this. I
yeah,
mean,
social security number, my home address.
this this great looking giraffe just told me to give him my social security and credit card numbers, so I have to listen. I'm sorry.
Don't you feel like in like this day and age that if somebody really wants to steal your identity, like it's not that hard. Like they can do it pretty easily. Like
Mhm.
it just feel. This wasn't a question you asked, so I'm just gonna rant about it.
Go, please, please.
I
Rant
just
away. I love it.
I just feel like there's this like such a false sense of security with like having to memorize passwords and things. It's like, no, somebody really wanted to steal that identity. Like, I'm sure there's 2 or 3. They could probably do it in 2 or 3 minutes, and all they would have to do is just like go into one account, like somehow unlock it, and then everything's unlocked.
Oh yeah.
But that's kind of just how I live my life. I don't think I I think about like security. Maybe that's just like I'm like a privileged white dude and I don't have to think about these things. So Now I'm really like having some introspection here. So thank you, Keoni.
Again, that's what this podcast is for, really, just to dive deep into yourself. So when I met you at this job, you didn't have the beard, you had the mustache though. And I
Mm.
remember you telling me that you get confused for the Monopoly man.
Yeah. I can't go to toy stores. I can't be around board games because people get confused and they start to try and open me. Uh, and actually, too, like Groucho Marx, if you have like black glasses and a mustache too, you get it all. But
Yeah,
um, before I had the mustache, I think I had the beard or whatever this is,
yeah.
and I was really curious, like, what would it be like to have a mustache? And uh, I tried it out, and I think what happens with a lot of people that just go for the mustache, you end up loving it. And gosh darn it, I loved it. But then eventually I got lazy, and so this happened again.
What do you remember some of the responses you got when you first introduced the mustache?
Hmm. I think for me, uh, since I don't know if you can tell, but I don't have so much hair on top. There's just not a lot of style options. If you want to keep this look, if you want to keep it nice and clean, squeaky clean, you don't have so many options. So really all you can do is like change your glasses and change your facial hair. Or I guess you could gain weight or lose weight. Maybe that might change it up. But so that's kind of how I've thought about my facial hair. It's another way to make myself more interesting and also change my style up every once in a while because I think that's healthy.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's why I went to the mustache, just try it out. And I felt like with the mustache, I became a little more iconic. You could like
Mhm.
draw me a little easier because there's probably more. I don't know about this. Maybe in this town there might be more. There might be more guys with beards than with mustaches. So having the mustache, the bald, and the glasses felt like okay, that's a little bit more of a unique look.
Mhm.
Um, and some people tease you about the mustache, or like, they want to just acknowledge that you have a mustache, and it's funny. And I kind of like that too, because it's the same way when like I first started shaving my head. It's people kind of like want to acknowledge that you have a shaved head or that you're bald. And at first, it's always been like something that maybe you were insecure about, but then you kind of own it, you celebrate it, and you kind of love it that it's a part of you and that it's something that you can laugh at and others can laugh at, and we can all laugh at. Can all laugh at my head together.
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever did the mustache. So actually, I was going into work at that last job, and the woman that sits next to me, it's kind of like her and I on our own island. She looked at
Mm.
me and she was like, "Keoni, you look like a '70s porn star." And like, I was like, "What? This is the best response I've ever gotten," because
Yeah,
you just did
yeah.
not expect it. But
Mm.
yeah, mustache culture has gone through some from very much in the gutters as far as like in the porn industry to now it's very much I think has its own Portland culture, and now it's like it signifies like you're a Portlandian if you have a mustache at least
Mm.
once in your life.
Yeah, you're right. The mustache, there's a history of mustaches in different cultures and in different uh, places of different areas of Americana culture.
Yeah.
Some good, some bad. I think too, like the mustache became part of Movember. So is this time when I think that's maybe when I started like, oh, this is like an excuse. I think Movember, it's like a great, it's yeah, like prostate cancer awareness, so it's like a
Mhm.
great thing to bring awareness to. But I also think deep down it's mostly people that just want to try the mustache on for size and have an excuse,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, I think that was my excuse originally.
Yeah.
Like, ah, yeah, I'm not doing this. I know this mustache is silly. I'm just doing it to like raise awareness. But, secretly we're all just trying it on and seeing if we can get away with it. And I think that's what it was. I felt like I could get away with it. Like my partner, she didn't think it was too gross. And that was like the first step to acceptance. And then
Right.
I, I kind of got used to it. So then, uh, I think the hardest thing, I think the next, well, we're spending a lot of time on my mustache, but I think the next um, evolution could be just trying to see what I look like if I shave everything off, and I'm just clean here, clean here. That is
Eyebrows,
like,
eyebrows also.
oh yeah, okay, the eyebrows too. But I think there's this moment where if you have something on your face, and you have this lovely beard as well, I'm kind of jealous. It's probably a little thicker than mine. Um, that if you have it for a while, you're kind of worried about what's underneath. Like once you shave it off, so I am thinking that I don't want to leave this on too long. That I'm concerned and get stressed out by the idea of,
Mm.
oh my gosh, what's going to be under there? Is it going to have some new blemishes and scars that I didn't know about, or am I going to have aged, 15 years, like, on my jaw, and have to quickly draw on a beard because I can't handle it.
I,
Those are the things that keep me up at night.
I always thought like as soon as I like let's say I grow a beard, I've grown something like thicker than this. Um, as soon as like I grow thicker, I shave it, my chin just shrinks. It's just like
Keoni Chats is proudly sponsored by Vibes Training. Dylan Vibes is a former guest and good friend of the show that did his time in the big business fitness circuit as far as being a trainer, but decided to take on the challenge of being his own business and take on the challenge of being his own boss. For him to be not just a former classmate and be a former guest, just, he's a great guy, he's a great friend. So I wanted to help him out by giving him this platform to always shout out his business. So if you are in the need to get outside but not go to the gyms because COVID is still a thing, I urge you to try out Vibes Training. So you go to vibestraining.com, click on the blue button, fill out the information field, and after you click submit, you will be prompted to download the app. And then once you download the app, you'll have a wide range of workouts ranging from 5 to 60 minutes, needing as little as nothing, or you can go to some bands, you got some dumbbells, barbells, or even a backpack, which I have 3 within eyesight. Check them out. Check it out. He's a great trainer. He's very enthusiastic. He's very energetic. You'll see that these workouts that he's doing, you can do them outside. It's getting nicer. Spring is coming. You can be outside and you can also work on your tan while, again, you're getting in shape. So go to vibestraining.com, click on the blue button, fill out the information field, and then get Vibes Fit today.
it's like my whole face just shrinks. I was like, oh, right, that's my chin. It's very liberating. It's very freeing, but it's also like very cold at the same time. So when did you start shaving your head? Because it is very clean. I don't see any kind of like hair lines or kind of hair shadows or follicles.
How dare you, sir? Yes, you're correct. There's not a lot of hair stubble that I can grow up here. Good job. Thank you, Keoni.
You're welcome, buddy. I've actually shaved my head too with a razor when I was in, I almost say like maybe like high schoolish. Because I used to rock the buzz head look for a while because football also, so sports, and it just makes kind of a lot of sense to not have a whole lot of hair. So one day I remember like shaving it, and then I got like the razor because I see that was a time when like the lines on the side of the head was a big thing. So I tried doing that myself. It didn't work. So I just said, screw it, let's do the whole head.
Shave it all off.
And
yeah,
it was weird touching my own scalp.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my story is a little different in that I knew that at some point I was gonna have to make a decision. I'm like, I guess it was like mid-20s, like, yeah, my hair is not as thick as it used to be. And there is gonna be a time when there's only so much you can do to make it look like as good as I want to look for it to look. So I have a couple of decisions to make, and one decision would be to lean into my hair loss and shave it all off. I remember kind of thinking through this decision and maybe struggling with it, and um, you know, finding some actually like great websites. That's I for anyone that's like was stressed out, about losing hair. I forget what it was called, but it was this like pro bald men's website, and even women who had gone through hair loss, and it was like all these great stories about like struggles or people being worried about their hair loss, and then they go to a place like a hair club for men or something, have these like horror stories. It was this really supportive community, and this was, gosh, like 10, 15 years ago. So it hadn't, I don't know, it was just like a weird thing you kind of find like on the internet. I don't know if it still exists, but I remember just reading some of those stories and being like, and seeing the support, and the idea that every head shape, because people will be worried about like, well, I want to shave my head, but I'm worried about my head shape, that it's going to be weird or awkward, or I'm going to have a big bump. And even this site was like great because it was like, no, every head's beautiful. They're just different and unique. There's no bad head. And so that gave me enough confidence to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it. I feel like I can work it out. I feel like I can make it like my own, and embrace it. And yeah, once you shave it, I'm sure you had this experience. There's nothing better than feeling like a shower like on your head, feeling like the water drops drip down like a really smooth head. So
Yeah.
and it's so low maintenance, like riding a bike, like you don't have to even think about it. You can just wake up and put yourself together pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone should shave their head.
I yeah, it's just I remember that, and then people were just like shocked when they saw me with like no
Mm,
hair at all.
mm-hmm.
And then I remember my brother, again, this is different time, but he just threw the jokes at like, "Why are you skinhead now? What's going on with
Ooh,
you?"
wow.
And what kind of responses did you get when you first introduced the bald Ryan Brown?
Oh, that's interesting. I guess it's hard for me to remember even. I remember going into like work, and people at first like didn't even recognize me, so it's like it was mostly confusion and shock. And then you get a lot of like people supporting, like, yeah, it looks good, or like, oh, it's awesome, good for you, kind of thing. And then like close friends kind of tease you about it, and like that's to be expected. I think I was more just like terrified just to, I mean, it's like putting yourself out there like in a different way. And you're going to get questions about it. And but I think in general, like the experience was like a little awkward the first day, the first few days, when like the air feels weird on your head and you feel like everyone's looking at you. And then a few days go by and you're like, yeah, people don't really care that much about you, like you're in their world, but they're not
Mhm.
like focused on this. They got other stuff going on. I got used to it pretty quick, and I think people around me got used to it. And then, the more I have this, people don't know the old me. It's actually, now it's funny because people see that only know me with my shaved head to see pictures of me with hair, and it's like, who's this guy? This does not look like you. That looks wrong. That looks weird. You look
Yeah.
weird there. So I'm getting. I think now I have much more of that than like, oh, you look funny bald.
Yeah, because when I was like looking through your Instagram, I just saw, I think the most recent photo I saw of you with your hair was you as a kid or maybe like a teen, and you just had like, it
Yeah.
was like a Christmas photo. You had you have the trademark Ryan Brown smile. So plus
Mm,
with this, I think it was a Christmas sweater also. So it's like
hmm.
I don't think, maybe I just didn't dig deep enough, but I was just like, oh, what does he look like with hair?
Yeah. Well, like early 20s too. Like uh, social media. Like people weren't. There was no Instagram. And some people were using social media a lot. Some weren't. And like
Mhm.
I've expressed, I'm not the best at all that. So yeah, that sounds about right. That you were you had to like dig to find like quality images of pre-bald Ryan, because you have to go on the dark web probably to find those.
Oh, I was a step away from doing that, but
I feel like this was before like ugly sweaters became a real thing.
Mm,
This is where I bought a sweater vest from like Burlington Coat Factory or something like that, and it was like a women's like vest with a lot of sequins and packages. And before like everybody was wearing ugly sweaters. I'm trying to give myself credit for this because I think I was doing it before it was a big thing. Maybe I have my own like story in my head, but I took some photos with some cats, Christmas photos, like in a studio, like a Sears studio, with like these two cats that weren't mine. I'm really allergic,
mhm.
and they were dressed up in Christmas outfits. And I think that's like my own most like infamous photo I've ever taken. But I'll usually send that around social media just to for those long time Ryan Brown connections. They get a kick out of that, and it's always a weird photo because you're talking about my smile. Yeah, I have the same nothing going on up in his head smile, like this carefree, dopey look with these cats, and we're all looking at the camera. So it's not only was like a decent concept, but like a really well crafted photo. So I have to give props to the photographer that did that one.
I must have missed by it in the mail or in the social media mail.
I can't know. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's no mail because I'm afraid I might send COVID along with it. So maybe next year I'll send you one.
That's all I ask. That's all I ask. So I mentioned some things that as like automatic responses when it came to people seeing my bald head. For you, did anyone confuse you for a cancer patient at all?
Oh, interesting. I feel like yes, there was probably those questions like, are you doing that because there's something else going on, and I think in general, uh, uh, there's some curiosity, but nobody was making such, assumptions like that. I think too, people are a little awkward sometimes and like don't want to ask like a personal question or make you feel bad if you're doing it because you're worried about your hair loss, or yeah, you're doing that because you're dealing with like a chemo. So I think people are a little respectful like that way. But like I'm sure like close friends probably teased me and like asked me like, well, what's really going on kind of thing. But
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I've also been like, I think like when I was younger too, I was more of a wild card. So people are just like, oh yeah, he's that weird cat photo guy. So he shaved his head. What's I'm sure he had some other weird thing he's gonna do next.
So when you get those kind of assumptions about yourself, the craziness, the outgoingness, the like what he's going to do next, is it exhausting to like trying to like figure out yourself while all these other people are like already throwing their assumptions about you in your
Hmm,
way as you're trying to also like make sure that you stay true to yourself?
that's interesting. Like, what it makes me think of is I think I get caught up way less in um, like the actual literal assumptions that people are making about me that they're telling me or that I'm hearing about, and more the assumptions that I'm thinking that I'm assuming people are making about me, right? So like I'm more caught up in my own narrative of like how I'm being perceived for good or for bad. So I don't think I really get caught up on like the real world, like how people view me. I think I get caught up in how I think people view me, and probably like most people, and you can get caught up in that and like uh, you know, like determine your self worth by how you think, other people view you. Like I was saying, I'm jealous of um, folks that can do social media and put themselves out there. Like I'm jealous of folks that like aren't so in their own head and like overthinking things and putting all this like judgment on themselves and the work they do. Like I wish I was better at that. I'm trying to be better at that, but I wish I was better at that.
So I overthink also. So
Hmm.
usually is like overthinking lean to that first step into something. Like I was
Hmm.
overthinking that first podcast interview because I was like, it's gonna be like this, gonna like carbon copy this other podcast from a celebrity. It's gonna be great. And
Hmm.
then when it gets to it, like we start going into it, I'm just like, oh wow, I was 100% not prepared. Oh, this was a reality check for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still working on that also. How are you working on trying to not overthink too much? Like, what's your process?
Yeah. I think like reflecting like on it and trying to make sense of it and trying to see it when it's happening. I think like understanding when you're being indecisive, understanding when you're fretting over something that's meaningless. I think if you can just like have those moments of like being out of your body and like look at yourself like, really, should I be putting this much thought and weight to this thing, whether it's something that somebody said about me or I'm just worried that I'm gonna do a bad job with something. I think it's that, and it's also trying to see that like these opportunities where you're overthinking and you're feeling bad about yourself are like learning opportunities. So it's a little cliche, but I really think that's powerful that like this whatever this thing is that I'm struggling with, it might suck in the moment, but I'll get out of it and I'm going to learn from it. And the more you do that and then you remind yourself that you did it last time and then the next time you remind yourself that you've done it 2 times and the more you do that, it's like the easier it gets and it's easier to come out of it. But I don't think it's ever like a I don't feel like I'm ever going to be like, oh yeah, now I'm done. Now I'm not overthinking things. I think I'm always that's just like my personality. It's just in my nature.
Yeah.
But I think you can like manage it, right? Um, but if you have some good tips, hey, I'm all ears.
I know, like I would use this example of like to help people understand like when it comes for at least for me to overthink. So, let's say, I'm in a relationship, I'm happy with her, but when I was single, I would, let's say anyone we were able to go to bars, like I see a cute girl at the bar, I should go talk to her. But what if it goes like A, super well, and then maybe more, or if it goes B, super bad, and I just can't say anything? Then what happens there if I run into her again at school? So it's like, it's kind of like a domino effect where it's like,
Right.
I see all these different paths, but I don't take any of them. So instead, I just kind of walk around and just go home or go away. So
Mhm.
it I've had those occasions where it's like overthinking has completely defeated any opportunities that's
Mhm.
I've had in my life. So it's I think my method of like trying to work with it is just maybe if I have a whiteboard, just diagram it all. But if I
Mm.
don't, just you know really think it out, or at least I'm getting better about talking it out too. So it's been nice.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in writing it out, drawing it out, just putting it on something and then putting it aside. Um, yeah, I had a thought, and oh, I was just thinking when you're talking about like the ABC path, like you can go
Mhm.
down this road or this road or this road. Sometimes, like when you eat an edible and you lay on your couch and you look at your ceiling, you really philosophize, however that may be, whatever's your poison. But whenever when you sometimes when you do that, you can kind of think like, well, actually, I was always going to choose C. Like there was never a question in my mind. I thought there was a question, but like no, I was always going to do this. And if we were to flip this coin 100 times, I'm always going C.
Mhm.
So sometimes there can be comfort in that, like maybe I'm not, really driving the ship. Maybe I just think I am, and uh, that can provide some peace.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we start recording, you mentioned that you went for a bike ride before the interview and then you came
Mm,
home philosophizing about COVID and how we're
mm,
kind of in the upswing of it, at least better management and vaccines are available. What were you
yeah,
philosophizing about? And I hope I'm using that word correctly. And I hope that's actually a word.
I'm probably not using that correctly, but I think so. I and what like a professional you are to remember that nugget to bring it in. Way to go. My
Thanks, guys.
my my big thought, and it's probably not that big, but I was thinking about the idea of traveling and maybe going somewhere that takes you out of your comfort zone. And the analogy I was thinking is like when you like travel abroad or somewhere, maybe we don't learn the language. Like you first get there, and it's really exciting because it's new. Everything feels fresh. You feel like really excited. And you have a lot of energy, and you're willing to like ask people for like help with like understanding, and just everything feels new and fresh, and you're excited to be somewhere new. And then I've had this experience of like traveling in a place like that where you don't know the language. That sometimes that initial excitement you kind of wears you down a little bit. Maybe some of the experiences are harder to access or not what you thought they were. Maybe some of the language barriers gets harder. Maybe you're just more tired because you're not getting as much sleep. But you kind of go through that wave of like that initial excitement, and then it's feeling harder, and you're like you kind of start thinking about home a little bit more, and you miss like what some of the comforts of home. Um, so then like after so then as you're doing that more, but you have this moment of like you kind of get over that hump, and then you feel like you're back in it again. You're like exploring, you're really immersed in this like new culture, new experience, and like you're feeling more comfortable in that uncomfortability, and it's just feeling more exciting. And then you realize, oh crap, like I'm about to go home. Like the days are numbered. It's like once you finally get comfortable, then you look and like, oh man, now I have to go back to where I was before. My thought was, I'm like, I'm feeling like that with COVID. Like
Yeah.
at first, okay, I'm not saying it was good. I'm saying the like experience of like, oh, I'm connecting with people in different ways. I'm doing like these Zoom chats. It's weird. I'm like reprioritizing things in my life. I'm, spending like things are like simplifying. There's I don't have to worry about some of these things that I was worrying about before. It was kind of nice and it was kind of exciting and it was kind of interesting. I was like, this is different. And then I went through the phase, and I guess like there's been a lot of these. It's not just one. That phase of like, I do not like this. I am tired.
Yeah.
Like this is not for me. Like I don't understand this. And now we're at this point where we're almost out of it again. And I'm like, oh, I've kind of gotten used to it. There's some things I like about it. There's a lot of things I don't like, but I'm so like comfortable in this now. Like I'm a little nervous about what it's like to go back to, the old way, like go back home.
Yeah.
And I still want to incorporate some of those things that I actually liked about this experience in it. So that was kind of like my big, like, it's interesting. I feel like I've had this experience before in a very like compressed way. And now I'm feeling these weird feelings about like being everything going back to normal. It's for better or worse. Like this experience of the last year was like, I enjoyed the experiment of it, like not knowing how we were all supposed to deal with it. Something about that was interesting, even though it was a really hard time for a lot of people. I'm not trying to discount the hardship, the collective hardship, but yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was riding my bike along in the rain today.
Well, I think that I'm a creature of habits. So when it comes to trying to, let's say, adapting to a new workplace. So like when I switched to this new job, I was like, great, I'm getting used to like all these people here. It's gonna be fun. That I get to finally dive into the chemistry of everyone. And then COVID happens, and then I had to get used to seeing no one at the office. And then I
Mm,
started adapting, getting used to that, and how to like freely operate.
mm,
And even I was given more responsibility, so I was like, this is awesome. And so now, yeah, we're getting to the swing of it. Like I'm so used to it. Now I'm trying to think of like what some things will stay, some things will go. But overall, I think yeah, it was a great change, a great challenge for everyone. So for you and in the creative world, what do you think that has
mm,
a changed
mm,
because of COVID, and B, what is going to stay changed? So like working from home as an example, it's
mm.
like working from home, it's now more prominent, more pushed. That's probably going to happen well past COVID. Is there something in the creative world that's going to be changed forever and ever because of COVID?
That's really interesting. I think I can say I don't know, but I can say what I hope. Like I hope that because people are more comfortable now using digital tools to connect, to collaborate, to share, even like collaboration tools like Miro and Mural, where you can have it simulates a lot of the real world experiences of working together, but actually has some things that you can't do in like an analog experience. So I think like I hope that we're able to have more of like a collective comfortability with some of these tools, and so we can have like, oh, there's reasons why we would you do something digitally, and then if we do something in person, there's real strong reasons why we do it in person. So I think it's now I hopefully it's just more responsible, like thoughtful choices behind the type of technology or the type of gathering we have. And sustainability could be a part of that. It's like people are traveling or flying less for meetings and stuff. People are seeing that they can get the same amount done over like a video conference. So there's like environmental, there's other like benefits to that. And then I think the only thing that comes to mind when you say that is like that we appreciate the physical stuff too more now, like having a printed magazine with different papers, having a piece of packaging with different textures and foils. That not only do we see the value in some of this technology that we're using, but we actually appreciate some of these physical artifacts and pieces and those experiences as well. maybe people getting more into reading books or magazines, or just like trying to get off their screens. And it's just, seeing like print, um, like struggle, and, you know, publications and publishing houses and stuff like that, like dissolving. It's, just hope that like this is also like a moment where we can appreciate the act of experiencing something in the physical world.
So when you started working from home, are you still the same designer? Are you still taking, or are you still taking the same risks that you would take with your clients and your partners?
Hmm. So that's an interesting question. Am I still taking the same risks? I think what's hard is that the budgets are smaller. That at least in the work that I'm doing, I work with a lot of already like nonprofits and mission-driven organizations that don't have like big advertising, marketing, design budgets to begin with. Um, so you're having to, I feel like there's more limitations. Like this time has provided more limitations. Um, so in some ways that can be actually like provide a lot of opportunities. Either like opportunities where before I would bring in like other resources, other designers or illustrators to help me. Now I got to do it my own. I got to learn something. Or like before, I'd be in person doing a workshop or with a consultant doing a workshop. Now I need to figure out how to make that experience virtual and get the same information that I would do in person, do it virtually. So I feel like there's been a lot of limitations, and that challenges you. And I think I've tried, or I've wanted to constantly push my own practice, push the work I'm doing, push clients, push it as much as I, can without exhausting myself and people to think different, to like to use this as an opportunity, even if you are under more limitations. Like over the last year, like the organization I worked with, we had a brand refresh, like a completely new website, a new look and feel. Just finished up like this magazine project we're working on for a year. I mean, I think with both of these projects, I might have taken a little more risk with each of them, but I was also had like a little more headspace to really get into them. Um, so I think I have been able, with some of the lulls in work, uh, been able to like push ideas a little bit further, or like be a little more risky, because I've had a little more space, a little more time, and maybe I've just been philosophizing more. So like, I've been applying that to to try and pick and choose some projects that I really push myself on.
Yeah. So when it comes to like taking risk, I feel like, especially in your line of work, that there are a bunch, you just kind of throw all your ideas out there, see which one the client likes. And
Mm.
then, some gets trimmed, some's just like, I like this idea, let's alter it. Is there a crazy idea you had? You don't have to say the name of the client, but is there a crazy idea that you had that you were like, I think this could work, come on guys, and then they end up saying no, it's just not the direction they want to go in?
Hmm. Yeah, there's always like a crazy idea. Usually it's like I want to do this piece in this crazy illustration style that's going to be really complicated, or it's going to have a lot of levels to it. It's going to be really rich. It's going to feel almost like 3D, or it's just going to feel like something that's not what you're used to. I think that's usually where I try to be a little more risky. Um, I think this magazine project I was just mentioning. It's a for an organization that I've worked with for years and worked with for years designing this magazine. But it's an organization that kind of combines issues of the environment with the creative arts. And with this issue, some of the risks we were taking were uh, I wanted to make it big, like a bigger format, because I really almost like a little full circle, like celebrate the materialness of it, like have it feel different than our magazine, have it feel much bigger. Um, and then like how can we make it feel even more like more of a reason why it's printed? How can we make the pacing of the pages? How can we make like the colors and the paper we choose like really amplify the experiment experience? So we ended up getting paper donated from this paper supplier in Oregon City, and they actually we wanted to have just like one paper stock. This is getting really designy in the weeds, so I
This is
stop
perfect.
me,
This is
stop me. This is
perfect.
boring.
I'm loving it.
But they were going to donate paper, and it's this cool paper that's made with wheat refuse. So it's like recycled wheat waste that they put into this paper, and you can see some of the fibers. And so our initial plan was to use this paper for the whole issue of the magazine. And it ended up they didn't have as much as we needed, but they did have other stocks of different finishes, some more glossy, some more kind of dull or matte like. And it was a limitation, but we kind of turned that into a way to be a little more risky with how we were thinking about the magazine. So instead of doing the same stock throughout, we have multiple stocks, and then we paired those stocks with some of the artists that we were featuring. Some of the artists we were featuring were more like working more of like a digital space. So we had something that really felt shiny or glossy, or something where the colors would be really like electric. And then we had some that did more like documentary photography style that was like really human and warm. So those like uncoated stocks with like the wheat fibers just really amplify this human quality and like warmth of the photos. So it's like a really cool way to experiment, and like you don't know how it's all going to end up looking a little bit, because it's until they start running this stuff on these different stocks and putting it together, you're kind of just hoping that it's going to turn out okay. And luckily, yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. It turned out pretty cool.
Keoni Chats is proudly sponsored by Cove Hard Yerba Mate. Josh Mackler is a good friend and former guest of the show, so when he came on and told me his story about Cove and how it came about, I was curious. So he actually sent me a package of the 4 flavors that he provides, which is the mango colada, a lemonade, berry, and a mojito flavor. So before I tried any of them, I went to the grocery store and I got that yellow can that has the words yerba mate on it, so I can get a baseline for how it should taste. So once I did that, I started cracking some open. I started tasting all 4 of them, and I gotta say that berry is still my favorite. I like a nice fruity drink. It's crisp, it's fresh, and also it's low in all the good spots as far as low calories and low carbs, and just low, which is great, because with spring coming about and the sun coming out, that's usually the signifier for tank top weather. So if you want to be out and about wearing your tank tops and you want to also relax with a nice alcoholic beverage that doesn't make you feel too full or too fat, as in terms of beer, because that does happen, then I would say that hard yerba mate is the way to go. So if you want to try this drink, or not just the berry, but any of the other flavors, go to hardyerba.mate.com, hardyerba.mate.com. So look at their menu, click on some items, and then before you check out, use the discount code Keoni Chats Cove, KEONICHATS for 25% off your total purchase. So Josh is very appreciative. I'm very appreciative to Josh for giving me a discount code, my first ever discount code. So I'm very happy to help get his name out there with this little plug-in. So before you check out at the hardyerba.mate.com little cart, use the discount code Keoni Chats Cove, KEONICHATS.com for 25% off your total purchase. You have to be 21 years or older to purchase any alcohol, and then please enjoy responsibly.
Yeah, because like at that point, it's just like all separate pieces, and you're like, I think this will go with there. The things will go with there. This is okay. All right, let's run it. Let's see how it goes. And then
yeah, like I hope when people start flipping through it, they're not going to be like, wait, why is the paper different here? Or like,
yeah.
You have to make decisions where 2 sheets on the same spread are going to be different stocks. And is that going to be like, is that going to look weird? And is that going to confuse the reader or somebody who's experiencing this piece? So you kind of just have to, I think if you like embrace the experiment of things when you can, when the stakes allow you, you can be pleasantly surprised.
So the paper you just mentioned got donated. How important is it to you? Because you also mentioned sustainability earlier. How important is just sustainability in your work and just sustainability in your everyday life? Let's say you recycle your bottles. How important is it to you?
Yeah, I think like the mindfulness to be like thinking about impact, I think is really important to me. Um, and I think that translates into different types of work. But yeah, sustainability has always been interesting to me. I worked at a an organization focused on energy management and sustainability, so I got to understand a little bit more how systems, energy saving systems work, and how like corporations help manage how they manage their energy and waste. So it was really interesting to learn about that. I think early on when I was in college, I went to AIGA, which is a, design organization, and they had their big annual conference up in Vancouver, BC, and it was, I'm going to this thinking it's going to be about graphic design and like what's good design, what's bad design, like visually, and the whole conference was about sustainability and like how can designers think bigger than just the things they're making? How can they think about the life cycle of products? How can they think about the paper they're choosing? How can they think about the vendors that are making the paper? Like, how can they make that more like responsible? So it was just really kind of eye opening, like that designers have the power, and we all have the power to be more responsible and think about like the things we put out in the world in a really responsible way. So it was really inspiring, and I think I've always wanted to carry that chip on my shoulder that like what am I putting out in the world, and is that making a positive impact, and if not, then why am I doing it? Like
Hmm.
who's it for and what is it for? And if it's not for me or the greater good, like then maybe I need to rethink, I need to rethink my A, B, or C that I've gone on.
Okay, yeah, and it the learning process never stops, which is, you think you just finished design school, for example, or you just finished journalism school, and you're like, okay, I feel like I feel like I'm good. I feel like I can handle this world, and then you start diving into new things, and then next, like at least for me, trying to take risk when it comes to, let's say, work on transitions. If there
Mm.
was a photo, I'd be so used to just using the cross dissolve tool to like make it seem seamless, but I'm like, that's so boring. So it's not like a greater good for like I guess it's not a greater good in like a sense of it's gonna change the world. It's just like
Mhm.
it's a different version of greater good when it comes to like it makes me feel good that I'm no longer using the cross dissolve tool to it
No,
makes
but
me
that's what it's like about, right? It's
yeah,
like as an individual, can you just make things just a little bit better, And
yeah.
like I feel like I'm never like, and I think that's my own like, in my own head thinking like, oh yeah, no one wants to listen to like me talk for an hour on a podcast, but it's like the same thing. It's like I understand that I can have impact, I can have positive impact. My impact itself is not necessarily going to change the world, but if enough people are doing, thinking about their small impacts, then yeah, then that adds up. And
Yeah.
um, but with that said, I like to take all my plastic and all my paper and just throw it in the landfill. I really just there's nothing more enjoyable than throwing a bunch of like aluminum cans in the neighbor's trash bin,
I
um,
really
just to
expected
keep yourself level.
I expected nothing less from you.
It's hard though. Sometimes you start to think about like the systems you're using that are supposed to be really beneficial for like groups of people or the environment. And then once you start thinking about the complexity of the process and systems in place and the supply chains of things, it's like it can be a little overwhelming to think like, wow, is this actually the best? Am I just like drinking the Kool-Aid here? Am I really doing what I should be?
Yeah.
Um,
It's like for Nike, for example, you know how you can recycle your shoes and then they turn it into little pellets for turf, I guess.
mhm,
Yeah, turf. It's
mhm,
like, okay, I feel good because I'm getting rid of my shoes. I have making space for new shoes. It's gonna go to be on a kid's field, but the process to get it to that point, like think of the smog that's going to get created because of the machines, and
Yeah.
then the gas that's going to be used, and all this blah 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 blah. Then you're like, am I really making a difference? No.
And like that, I feel like sometimes that nuance, like and then like digging deeper is like what I feel like collectively as a species we just need to be doing all a better job at, right? Like
Mhm.
with politics, with like the choices we make. It's just like I just feel like sometimes maybe we don't give ourselves the space to dig deeper and to really like understand something at like different elevations and levels. We kind of like, oh yeah, this has got to be good. It has the word recycle in it. This must be like the best way to do it. Instead of like, oh well, maybe actually I shouldn't purchase that thing in the first place, or
Yeah.
maybe there's actually a different way to break down the life cycle of this thing. Um,
I think that can also
so
be said
yeah.
towards like, when you have a craving for like cupcakes and you go to like
Mm,
Whole Foods or something like that. You're like, okay, I'm getting it from Whole Foods, so it should be good, organic, but
mm.
also, is it actually good and organic? What about all these ingredients on this list? And then how am I going
Mhm.
to feel afterwards?
You're gonna feel really good, and then you're gonna feel really bad. I feel like that's the usual experience with cupcakes. You feel really good right after, and then either the sugar high comes down, or you ate too many, and you just feel all sick to your stomach. But
Yeah.
still go back for more cupcakes. Never learned that lesson.
So going back to again before we started recording, you mentioned that you have a new dog, which is
Oh
awesome because
yeah.
new dogs are great. And then you kind of coincided with your former dog who passed away at
Hmm.
the same time of the election.
Are you just trying to make me cry right now? Is this
I
where
got,
is
I,
is
I
this the
got.
part of the interview where you get the tears coming out? All right,
Yeah,
I'm
I
game. Let's
want a
do
snot bubble.
it.
How much work and how much like digging did you actually invest into this most recent political campaign with Biden and Trump?
Oh, good. I thought you were gonna ask me how much digging did I do before I buried my dog. Not a lot. She was only 30 pounds.
I'm not that cruel. I'm not that cruel.
Okay, I'll tell you what I dug into. I think I tried to dig into why certain people vote for certain people.
Well,
And I
we'll
tried
leave
to
it at that.
understand that. I have family members on the complete spectrum of basically from conspiracy theorists to moderate Republican to completely far left liberal. So I feel like I have the spectrum of people, and it's interesting to me to hear like their views on things and like why they make certain decisions. It's also like infuriating, frustrating, scary, sad. It's like the full spectrum of emotions. And I think if anything, that's some of the work I tried to do. I don't think I was always successful. I think sometimes I failed miserably because my own emotions got the best of me, and I had like a strong reaction, and then got really confrontational, and then that person didn't want to talk to me about it anymore. Or other times I felt like I wasn't being fearless enough to engage and really like listen, like really listen. But I think that was my attempt to go deeper. I mean, sure, yeah, I read a little articles and stuff, but I kind of had my mind already made up, and definitely went to probably more engaged locally too than in some of the other national races than I have been in years past. Um, but yeah, I think that trying to go deep was really just trying to like make sense
Mhm.
of some of these other viewpoints that I just didn't understand, and still don't. Still trying to understand, but at least having some self-awareness and how I'm communicating my own like thoughts and feelings about it.
Yeah. I So leading up to that election, I just remember actually prior to that whole election cycle, I was never into politics. I would never do research anytime a ballot came.
Mm.
I remember one time in college, I was just like, Mom, I have a ballot. What do I do? And she's just like, well, let me just I'll you're supposed to do your research, but let me just tell you this one time. So when this round came about, I was just like, I'll do some research, but I honestly I will not understand a single thing. I'll check. I'll see how it is. No idea. I just know like I want this other guy to win because this other guy was horrible.
Mhm.
And so I was still blind to some extent, but at least it felt good to actually like dive in because it felt like this was a pivotal moment in history.
Yeah, it felt pretty important. And I think, when I talk to maybe family members I don't agree with, and they're saying something that I've never heard before, about a particular politician or topic, I think in my mind, whether I ask this out loud, I'm just like, well, what's your source? And like, did you
Mhm.
challenge that? Like, if it's something that sounds really radical, like, did you challenge your source? Did you like confirm that in other news organizations? So yeah, I think part of it too, like this over this last couple of years, is trying to find like news sources that feel reliable and feel somewhat unbiased, or at least understanding that if you're going to one news source, that you're supplementing it with others, so you're not just getting like one side, because I feel like that is the easy way out. That I've also
Mhm.
had this discussion of like, oh well, we just get our news from different sources, so yeah, that's why we'll never understand each other. And it's like, well, that doesn't have to be that way. Like we should both be doing better jobs at like digging deeper and not taking things for granted.
Yeah.
um yeah.
And then sometimes I think I'm just pure lazy. Not even talking about like politics, for example. Just like
Yeah.
when it comes to like I don't know, a movie, I'm just like, oh, this looks good from the bare like cover or just like the I guess the poster for like if I'm on Netflix, for
Mm.
example, I'm like, this looks cool. Instead of actually reading and be like, oh, this is in Spanish. Oh, I don't,
But but
what's
there's
going on?
actually something like that's an interesting idea though, right? Because there's like something good about sometimes when you do read it, then you make some judgments about it. They're like, well, maybe I'm not in the mood, or maybe I want something lighter. And then if you would have just dove in, then you actually would have found something maybe that was completely like different than what you expected and like changed you in some way.
Mhm.
And I definitely think like COVID and all of this experience is it feels like there's less moments of just like discovery, because you're not out there in the world just seeing something and being inspired, or like, oh, I'm gonna go walk in there and just check it out. Everything is like so strategic, like, okay, I'm going to this place to do this thing, and then I'm coming back here, and like I'm gonna listen to these 3 podcasts because like that's really comfortable in this space. So I definitely think there's a lot of value into just like going for it. And I think that's you just saying it out loud. I'm like, yeah, I need to, at least with my movie watching for sure. Like I need to be more like spontaneous.
Right, right. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna watch Genie in Georgia. Let's do it.
I know, like right now, somehow it's not like I planned this out, but somehow like the shows that I get into are these like 10 episode mini series that
Mhm.
have like a legal component and some sort of like drug dealing, like kingpin thing. It's like I'm like, how did I get back into this? I'm like, I guess I have a type, and I need to break out, but somehow that's been my comfort food lately.
Could it be that you look like Eisenberg from Breaking Bad?
Oh my God. You know what? That is such a clear reminder that I forgot that I think, did he have like was there a part, did he just have a mustache? No, no,
He
he kind of did. A
had
goatee. He had a goatee.
yeah, like early on, and then I think at first, like first season or so, like he had a mustache, and then he grew it into like the goatee.
Keone, you're really reminding me. I think you're right. I think part of Heisenberg kind of made it just a little bit cooler. Like Michael Jordan, like what really, I mean, Terry Savalas, Michael Jordan, uh,
Vin
uh,
Diesel,
Vin Diesel, yeah,
Dwayne
the Fast and
Johnson.
Furious, Dwayne Johnson. But Heisenberg, I feel like I relate a little bit closer because he's less of like a, you know, 600-pound piece of muscle.
Yeah.
Like Vin Diesel and like The Rock. I'm like, yeah, those you guys are like you're monsters, you're superhumans. Like I can't relate to you really on anything. But like Heisenberg, yeah, like fumbling around in his world, like things coming back to bite him in the ass, like uh, every day kind of you'd walk by him on the street and not think twice. I can relate
Yep.
to that.
Yep. I found your spirit character.
I think there was a point I thought about buying that like hat, the
Oh yeah.
corn cob style. I
Hmm.
think that's what corn. whatever that style is. I thought about getting one of those. Um, I'm glad. I'm glad I didn't go down that road too hard
Yeah.
because I feel like they're a little out of style now. But yeah, for sure,
Oh,
inspiration to me.
that show will never go out of style. I feel they found some way to bring it back in a movie like 2, 3 years later to kind of wrap it all up. So it's like, oh, I forgot about this completely, but okay, let's watch it all over again. But I've also wondered, so since COVID, have you continued brewing your cider?
You know, I let's see. No, I guess it's been about a year since I did
Mm.
a cider brew. Um, yeah, I think because I still haven't finished drinking the cider, like I still have cider left over. It's amazing how much you can make, when you do it yourself. Um, and usually it's this celebratory thing of, I think one time we actually met, driving out to Hood River and going
Yep.
in the Fruit Loop, and I've done it years past where I've actually juiced my own apples, and that is such a mess, and it just requires certain tools and things. And so now I just get the straight, unpasteurized like cider from these, apple orchards. And but it was more like the celebratory experience where you do it, and always the idea of like sharing it. And I don't know, it just it's the COVID times. It feels different,
Mm.
even though I think I've thought about it more like, oh, I should really do that, but maybe I just have my overall energy level to want to do it decreased.
You
And
got you
maybe since
got
I'm home
yeah.
more too, it's like you have this smelly, loud, like bubbly thing kind of like sitting in your, like the way I had to keep the temperature in the right way, I would keep it in my kitchen. So, it's a little, if you're like working at home all the time, the house kind of fills with yeasty, cidery smells, which, kind of good and bad, I guess.
I mean, just throwing some cinnamon and you got like Thanksgiving right there. Just a smell of like cinnamon and apples.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I've done some ciders where I put in different spices like ginger and like goji berries or cherries, just like other fruits and stuff to give it like some interesting flavor. So yeah, that's true. Definitely, you can mix it up that way. But when you start adding spices, it's always a little bit of a gamble.
Hmm.
And we put cloves in a cider batch once, and we put too many. I think the right amount of clove is like one clove.
Mm.
Like we put in like handfuls, and
Dear God,
it's
man.
like gallons of cider. So you think like, oh yeah, this if you just let it sit there for a day or a few days, it'll be fine. But it was like basically undrinkable. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
I remember like maybe the tail end of my time at my last job, you gave me a bottle of your, I think your cider. I think it was also maybe on its last limbs as far as like expiration date. So
huh,
you're like,
oh,
I need to get this out. You want some? I was like, sure.
oh, wait. Are you saying because that's how it tasted, or because that's how I positioned it? Did
I
it
think
taste like it was
it's.
expired?
I think you said it's sour. It's a sour cider.
Yeah, yeah. We used like a yeast that's supposed to create a more
Oh,
funkier kind of like cider. That's kind of what we like. There's like a
okay.
term, horse blanket. There's like a term you can ask if you were like. It's my favorite term, but you can ask for cideries or like even breweries if you ask for something that's kind of horse blankety. It's kind of funky. It almost
Mm.
like tastes like an animal or like a barn. That's what it feels like. It feels like it tastes like a barn. It feels like kind of wild. So that's I've always tried to make like a cider like that. It ends up just being a little more sour,
Hmm.
and a little funky. Not as funky as I'd want it to be, but
Mm.
I'm gonna say that cider was good.
Okay.
It just was maybe too sour. I apologize if you got sick off of it.
I just I remember trying to drink it and then like I think I put like aluminum foil over the top to like say I'm gonna try this again tomorrow, and then tomorrow came, never happened. So I was like,
yeah,
unfortunately, I think this one is no longer good. But I did keep the bottle because you made me a personal label, so I had to
yeah.
make sure that stayed with me.
Well, I also put a legal disclaimer so you couldn't sue me if you got sick. So I don't know if you saw the
Oh,
small type there, but that was, yeah. I put the label on just so you wouldn't, seek legal damage.
I have this horrible habit of just signing things and not reading it, so yeah, I'm sure it's in there.
Don't we all? Yeah, I'm about to refinance like the home I'm living in, and I can't wait for the 50 sheets of like documents that I'm just gonna like sign,
Yep.
sign.
You're a calculated risk taker.
Sure.
Calculated risk taker.
Yeah, I feel like we've had this conversation. I think we were both maybe too calculated sometimes, but yeah, I'm definitely I calculate it and then I overthink it and then I decide not to do it, and then 2 years later I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it.
All right, Ryan. So I love to finish my interviews by asking 2 questions out of this packet of 170. So
Whoa, I love it.
I'm just giving you 2. So the whole 170 can be another episode. We did talk about
Ooh.
having you come back. So
No, I want to be a co-host. That's the next thing. I don't want to come back to talk about me anymore. I just want to be your sidekick.
You want to be my sidekick? All right, okay. I mean, we got
one episode.
chemistry.
Just bring me back. I'll be your like Andy Richter or whoever. I'll just be a little sidekick that can throw in a funny quip, but doesn't really have to do any of the heavy lifting.
You're a little snarky here or there.
It's just snarky. When there's dead air. I'll just throw something funny in there.
So, what fantasy creature would you love to bring into the real world?
Wow, this is a really deep, like, what would you say to God if you met God kind of question.
Alanis Morissette style.
from Dogma. Like my first instinct is to say unicorn, but that doesn't sound like it's like what fantasy creature is it? Oh, well, maybe like a unicorn or a manticore. A manticore, which is a like part griffin, part lion, part man. It's a terrifying monstrosity of a fictional creature. There's no reason it should exist in any universe or any multiverse, but that would be an interesting creature to have exist in the real world. I've always been interested in that one because it's such a dopey, strange creature that was made up. I can't remember if it's like it has Greek origins or what, but the manticore is that's my answer, manticore.
That's close to what Napoleon Dynamite, the liger.
Wait, no, a liger is a real thing. A liger.
Oh, it is.
Yes, it's a lion and a tiger, and they've had relations, and that's the baby. So it's a real thing. That's not a fictional creature.
I want to say dragons because I don't want to drive. I want to be able to fly to wherever I need to. I'm going to change it because dragons can be very dangerous.
You say dragons you're saying like dragons are going to be like in like these fantasy movies or novels where like they're pets. So in your imaginary world, we treat them as pets. They're not like wild creatures that you may see like flying overhead. Maybe they're in the zoo, I don't know, or in a park. But yeah, okay. So they're your pet, and you're flying around on them.
It would just be more, because I was just thinking, I was like, it'd be fun. If I had a dragon as a pet, that way I can not have to drive. But also, like, if let's say I live near a forest, there's a dragon in the forest, I'm fucked. I'm just straight boned if they come in on an angry day and destroy us. So here's my.
So you're really thinking about the practical aspects of having the dragon. That's interesting that you would go so practical. Like, I don't have to drive to work today. I got a dragon. Like, that's the big pull for that fantasy creature to exist.
And this is why it's all hypothetical.
The commute.
It's the commute that would make things so much easier.
Can we have dragons that really help the commute?
Just don't fly into airplanes because that would just.
Yeah, different elevation for sure.
Gotta stay away from those. I mean, it can also be the dragons from Dragon Tales. Those ones are friendly, so not too ferocious.
Dragon Tales.
I
feel like, are you trying to like? Is this like a thing where you age me, or like I lose all my street cred with like the like bookworms? Like, is Dragon Tales is like a series of books? Is that a TV show? Is that a movie I missed out on?
Oh, buddy, it's like a OPB TV show where it's
okay, no. See, now I'm gonna explain it because I think I know what you're talking about. It's like a bad kind of like CGI, like 3D animation, and it's kind of set in like a castle, and there's like teenage or preteen characters, and there's a dragon, something like that.
I mean, that would be fun to watch, but no, it's just like a kids' TV show where like these two kids, they're Spanish, these two Spanish kids, they go into this wonderful world and then they just hang out with these dragons and read and basically do all these. It was a childhood OPB show.
Okay.
So
So yeah, the one I described is, yeah, that wasn't it.
points for trying.
Close. Had
Points for
kids and
trying.
a dragon.
My second question to you is, what sound do you think you would miss most if you went deaf?
What sound? Gosh. Uh, the sound of a child's laugh. No.
Because you can hear a child's laugh in the dark in a forest, and then you're just like, I don't want to hear that ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I think music, but that's not like a specific sound. Like, gosh, you know what I've thought about? I think maybe I've thought about this. Maybe I'm just thinking about it, but like the sound, like of like the environment, like the trees, like the rustling. You can feel the air, even the sound of the wind. You can feel it, but like to not hear it, to not hear that little rustle. Um, I think I probably missed that. Probably the smaller sounds, right? Like some of the louder sounds I wouldn't miss so much, but those like just smaller like sounds where you're being really reflective and like kind of like I feel like those moments of peace where you're really engaging with your environment, you know, you're kind of noticing those small things. It's like I think I would miss that. I think I might feel less connected to the natural world around me.
Yeah, I was, to me, like immediately as you were, answering, I was thinking, stepping on leaves as like you're
Hmm.
walking outside. And then I was gonna say the sound of like water flowing, but that just makes me have to use the bathroom. So I'm gonna say none of
is it
that.
is that yeah, you're right, because like then that would kind of induce, yeah, needing to use the restroom. So yeah, and you know, there's probably other sounds like, I mean, this to not hear a fart ever again. That sounds. I would really miss that. Like, what if you? This is good. It feels like this might be offensive to people that either are deaf or are dealing with any kind of hearing impairments. But I'm just gonna say it. Like, I don't know. And maybe I'll have to Google this. Like, if you, how long would you be able to forget what a fart sounds like? Hmm? Like, could you? Would I forget? Would I, if I was deaf for, if I couldn't hear for years and years and years, would I forget what that sound is like?
It doesn't have to be far. It could just be anything. That's like any sound. And does it stick?
No, no, I
You
know.
want
I
specifically?
specifically, Keoni, like you really should have cut it off right after. I feel like right after I said like noticing your surroundings. For like me, that felt like a really good place to end. But you kept going, and now you got me talking about farts, and it's you. This is really, I don't know. I don't know. You were doing so well. Like I'm not sure about how you closing this thing out.
Oh,
Nobody wants to hear me talk about this.
so
You
speaking
can
of,
just edit this out, okay?
oh, Ryan, how can the people find you on social media and your website? And your website also.
Oh goodness, I would say LinkedIn. That's the best way because every once in a while I might post up there. My own personal website, it's under construction, so I would say learn more about the work I do and the people I work with. Go to futurework.design. So futurework one word dot design, and you'll kind of learn more about the kind of work I do, the people I work with, and even there's a little bit of a bio in me there too, and some contact information and links to some of my social media. But as we've talked about, I don't have the most robust social media presence, so maybe that's like a fun little scavenger hunt for your listeners to find out, see if they can find me.
Good luck, guys.
Good luck. Yeah, good luck.
So before I let you go, uh, you are a podcast listener, and now you've just completed your first podcast, episode that you were a guest on.
Wait a
Assuming,
second. I want to one correction. This is the second podcast I've been on.
so you've completed your second podcast episode or second podcast underneath your belt as far as like experience.
Sure.
How do you feel knowing that this our journey together is done for now?
Uh, I am always terrified that there's a recording of me talking, especially talking about myself out in the world. So that's a little terrifying, but I've enjoyed this conversation. I always enjoy talking with you. I think that's why we have this bromance, as you called it,
Very strong, very strong.
connection, because we can talk about the dumbest things and and some interesting things too. Not saying their questions are dumb. I'm just saying we can talk about the smallest things or the biggest things, and it's interesting to me. Whether it's interesting to anybody that listens to this, who knows? But I feel good. I've enjoyed this. Thank you for having me on. Um, uh, Thank you for your warmth and your interest and your preparedness, and all those classes, all those journalism classes that you took have really paid off. You've really hit the big time. So I'm curious to know what sponsors will be on this podcast, whether it's one of those food delivery services or website builder, pieces of software. But I'm excited to see what sponsors are going to be layered into this.
Thank you so much for sticking around until the end of the episode. If you like what you heard or watched and would like more episodes from Keoni Chats, the show can be found on all major podcast platforms under Keoni Chats. A video version is available on YouTube under Keoni Chats as well. So like and subscribe on those platforms to keep in the loop as far as the next episode released. But if you would like to be a guest, go ahead and email me your story at kcmedia13@yahoo.com, and I'd love to get you scheduled. To keep up to date with all of the episode release announcements on social media, the KC Media brand can be found on Instagram and Twitter under KC Media 13. And then on Facebook, it can be found under Conluke Media. So until the next episode, everyone, please take care.